Good morning, everybody. Good morning. How are you? Can you all hear me well? If you can hear me, please type yes into the chat window so that we can move on. Okay, everybody? If you can hear me well, please type yes into the chat window. Okay, good. Very nice. Thank you. So it looks like everybody can hear me well and we are ready to start. Now, just in case there are some new participants today, we need to spend some time making ourselves familiar with the tools for our meeting. Now, first thing first, I would like you to go to the top of the screen and you should see um, you should see my mood, okay, at the top. Now, okay. So again, okay, another track. Do you hear me well? If you can hear me, please select hands up in my mood. Please show your hands on my mood. Alright. You do not see my mood there? It's okay. It's okay. Right. So I have put our meeting into the listen only mode, but I will try to put it back into discussion mode sometime. Um Now, so to start our online meeting today, I would like you to go back to our learning system and do your attendance track. You have 2 minutes to do it. Okay, I have got 28 people taking attendance already, and we have about 40 participants. Good. Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Now, so in our discussion today, we will look at the principles and methodologies of contrastive linguistics. Um, and in order to have better connections for our meeting, I will now, turn on my webcam. Okay. Now, in order to conduct a contrastive analysis works, there are several key principles that we need to stick to. Um, the first principle is that before comparing and contrasting language pairs, we need to describe the pair carefully, meticulously, and accurately. This is an essential step, and your description may be okay, from your own research, from your own work, or you can compile from the descriptions that are already available. Um, Now, this description part is not necessarily a separate part in your analysis. It can go in a variety of formats. So you can have your description of one language and then move on to the other, or you can describe each aspect in two languages, and then move from one aspect to the other. Okay, very soon after this activity, we gonna have a practice with some contrastive analysis words, and I will require you to identify the principles that we have just discussed here. Now, in order to have good descriptions and reliable descriptions, you are required to have good command of the contrastive languages. This is important because only with good command of the language that you can identify you know authentic or inauthentic language data, and that's why in our class I ask you to show me evidence of your command of the language pairs that you plan to work with. Now, usually we do not have problems in describing the target language, because you learn a lot about the rules, about the forms, the structures of the target language. Um, we usually have problem with our native language. So at the end of this course, when you write contrastive analysis essays, let's say, comparing English and Vietnamese, then most of the errors in describing the system um gonna be in describing your mother tongue Vietnamese. So okay, the key point here is that when you compare Vietnamese with another language that you know, like English, French, or Chinese, make sure that you read about Vietnamese grammar carefully, and do not only go with your hunch. You may be very good at writing and speaking and at producing Vietnamese, but okay, um, describing Vietnamese is not an easy job for everybody. Um, Now, the next principle is that when we conduct analysis, we need to put our analysis within a holistic view. I mean, we should try to see all of the issues, all of the aspects that are relevant to the topic. Otherwise, we may miss interesting things for analysis. Um, in our last lectures online and no, face to face on Wednesday, we talk about why we should not only focus on language form, and we should also look at both form and meaning in our analysis. And okay um this principle is similar when we analyze language pairs. We should look at the form, we should look at the meaning, and we also look at the other things like cultural aspects, or even other knowledge field that may be relevant, like um, psychology, like anthropology. Right. So try to be um, far-sighted, and okay, try to look at all of the possible things that may have a certain connection to the topic. For example, this is the topic that we discussed in our face-to-face meeting last Wednesday, when we analyze first personal pronoun in English and in Vietnamese. um, we should not compare the two first personal pronoun I and tôi, from the from the pronoun system only. We should also look at how other part of speech, how other um, word classes can also be transformed into pronouns in Vietnamese. And it is also interesting if we can include a discussion about the cultural differences between the two languages, by analyzing these pronouns. When we analyze the conceptual metaphor, the head stands for intelligence. For example, when we say he is head and shoulder above us, we do not mean that he is physically taller than us. We mean that he is smarter, more intelligent. We may make our analysis more insightful and more interesting if we take cultural aspect into account. For example, you may want to see whether those kinds of thinking um, also exist in Vietnamese culture. Do we have idioms containing head, đầu, for example, that stand for intelligence? Um, and if you look at this idiom from that perspective, you may find out that there is a key difference. Not only in language structure, but also uh, in the culture of the two uh, speech communities. In English, people very often conceptualize head as something that stands for intelligence, but in Vietnamese, you see, the head usually stand for importance rather than for intelligence. And for intelligence, we use other body parts. For example, the stop match. Like sáng bụng, sáng dạ. Like uh, đó là một người rất là à, thông minh, sáng dạ. Then we come to the finding that, yeah, bụng đầy chữ. We come to the finding that in Vietnamese culture, the stop match is frequently used to refer to intelligence. And so traditionally, thinking for Vietnamese people starts from the stop match. rather than from uh, rather than from the head, like that in English. So, okay, there were two examples to illustrate why we need to look at the issues file analysis from holistic viewpoint. Otherwise, we may be, a formalist, simply focusing on form and okay, missing the other interesting things for analysis. Um, Now, the next principle is that um, when we analyze language pairs, we should not only look at the form, the meaning, but we also look at the communication context. Because when um, language is analyzed inside actual context, we can see a lot of variety. Uh, and far, for example, can have okay, different meanings in different contexts. And as Vietnamese, you are very quick to understand this. Um, Now, back in Vietnamese, um, is a pronoun that is okay not only used to refer to people who are older than our parents. Um, they okay. Sorry, I have a call and I just switch up. Um, Now, back can also be used to refer to somebody who is simply older than us, like anh chị. But um, but in context where we do not, see the people that we communicate with, like in online forums, I honestly see the nickname. Okay, I do not know whether the person I am discussing with is a man or a woman, and I do not know whether he or she is younger or older than me, right? And in that particular communication context, uh, back is a very useful pronoun. Okay? Another example can be the difference between how we conceptualize cold and hot in our two cultures, Vietnamese and British culture. Um, for example, Vietnamese students okay, may be confused when reading Shakespeare's verse describing Juliet. They see okay, as beautiful as a summer breeze. Okay, so for Vietnamese students, okay, a summer breeze okay, or summer wind is something that is very hot, very uncomfortable, and uh, summer, in our culture, in Vietnamese culture, is associated with being very hot, being not comfortable, um, um, and okay, it's hard to understand why a beautiful girl is compare with okay a summer wind or summer breeze okay like Shakespeare did. But if we put this in the context of differences in culture, we see that in England there are four different seasons, and the best season of the year is summer. Now, even though we call it summer, it is actually cold by Vietnamese standards. The temperature in the summer of Britain is usually from uh, you know at daytime it can be from 15 to 20 or 22 degrees Celsius. And okay, during summertime it might sometimes even drop okay below 10 degrees Celsius. So summer in England is uh, the seasons where people do have a lot of rain. People can go out and enjoy the sunshine. If you have the chance to travel to temperate weather zones like England or the okay, northern part of America, you can see a lot of people okay, lying on the grass during summertime, okay, enjoying the sunshine. Okay, and that's why okay, Julius in Shakespeare's is compared with the summer breeze because it aroused very sweet feeling, beautiful memories, and all of the good values in the cultures. Right. So let me give you another story. Um, Several years ago, a professor from Australia, okay, prepared to come to our university to teach, and it was around Christmas in Ho Chi Minh City. Right. So the students okay email the professor saying Christmas is coming to Ho Chi Minh City, and okay, yeah, it's cold here now. So for these Vietnamese students, okay, being cold in Ho Chi Minh City, okay, mean the temperature is around 24 or 25 degrees Celsius. Now the professors, having never been to Vietnam before, okay, brought with her actually, a very large suitcase of all of the warm clothes, okay, and actually, she never actually had any chance to wear the warm clothes, and she complained that, well, this is actually hot for us, okay, this is not cold at all. So you see, okay, there are actually interesting aspects in cultures that we need to pay attention to in our analysis. Um, Now, the next principle is about um, consistencies in our analysis. When we adopt a theoretical framework for our analysis, we need to stick to that framework. Why? Well, the answer is because um, language study is okay, an area of social studies, and there are different schools of thought, um, different viewpoints. Okay, and I think you have already learned about these differences a little bit in the previous face-to-face discussions. Now, let me give you some examples about okay to show you what I mean. When we analyze idioms, for example, you will see that okay the structural framework and the cognitive frameworks have very different viewpoints about the natures of idiomaticity. For example, structural linguistics okay, define idioms as okay, a fixed uh, group or set of words that um, that meanings okay, cannot be predicted by by learning the meanings of individual words in the idiom. For example, um, if I take my students an idiom um, like kick the bucket, kick the bucket, then the meaning of the idiom cannot be learned by learning the meaning of kick bucket, and instead I need to explain the whole meaning of the idiom. To kick the bucket mean to die. But from the cognitive viewpoint, uh, idioms are actually predictable if we know, if we understand the cognitive mechanisms that um, that form the idioms, then we were able to infer the meaning. Um, for example, coming back to the case of to kick the bucket, um, cognitive linguists believe that we can decode the meaning of the idiom if we know, number one, the cultural context. Number two, we know the conceptual metaphor that activate or motivate the meaning of the idiom. Um, so, okay, kick the bucket can be traced back to the habit of people very, very long ago. Okay, when they want to kill themselves, they would stand okay on a bucket of water, put upside down, and then put their neck into the rope, and they kick the bucket, right? So if we look at the idiom in that sense, then the meaning is much clearer, and so the the symbolic meanings of bucket and kick combined together can help students to understand the meaning. So that is just one example about the difference between structural linguistics and cognitive linguistics in analyzing idioms. If you choose to write your CA essays about idioms, then remember to either use the structural linguistics viewpoint or cognitive linguistic viewpoint. Do not try to bring these two framework into one analysis, because you will see them fighting with each other. Or at least you can you can bring these two into your literature review discussions, but then you need to say that you decide to take this framework and not the other framework for your nature of analysis. Um, Now, let me give you another example about the nature of word and morphism. This has been very much a debate until now in Vietnamese language studies. Now, according to Leonard Bloomfield, well, before I go on, everybody, I would like to have a little quiz. What is Bloomfield famous for? Oh, hey, this is an easy quiz first. Where is Bloomfield from? What is his nationality? Please type your answer into the chat window. Oh, great, great. Um, so Bloomfield is an American linguist, and he he was recognized for his work in Whitfield. Okay. So what is Bloomfield famous for? Please type your answer into the chat window. I don't think that Bloomfield is famous for structural linguistics. Come on, I mentioned his name twice in our discussion about history of contrastive linguistics. Oh, and some of you might haven't done your presentation about your favorite linguist yet. This can be an idea. No, Bloomfield is not known for best known for structural linguistics. Bloomfield is credited for his works with descriptive linguistics. Remember what we talked about last time? Uh, yeah. During the early decades of 20th century, Bloomfield successfully described um, the language of red um, native Indian people in America using the um, descriptive linguistic framework. All right. So according to Bloomfield, a morpheme okay is the smallest meaningful unit of the language. So if you can okay you know find a unit in a language that is no longer um you know that is no longer um, splittable and it has meaning, then it is a morpheme. Now if we take this definition in our analysis of vocabulary, then we come to the conclusion that in Vietnamese and in Chinese we have thousands of morphemes, we have millions of morphemes. For example, when I say ngày mai tôi đi học, so ngày it is meaningful, mai it is meaningful, tôi is meaningful, đi is meaningful, and these units are no longer splittable into smaller parts, so they are all called morphemes. And we will not be able to find words in Vietnamese and English in isolating languages. Instead, we only find morphemes. However, if we adopt the theory of body courtenay, that morpheme is the smallest meaningful unit within a word, and morpheme is the result of splitting words, then we come to the conclusion that um, that um, in Vietnamese and in Chinese there are no morphemes, because morpheme um the, according to this definition, morpheme are results of splitting words into smaller units. And because let's come back to to the example I have just given, ngày mai tôi đi học. So with ngày, for example, you cannot split it into any smaller unit, so you do not have any derivative morpheme. Mai is similar, you cannot split it into smaller units, so you cannot have any morpheme that derive from the word. So we have only words. We have thousand millions of words, and we do not have morphemes. If we take uh, the viewpoint of uh, boarding the continent in our analysis. All right. So in one word, when we adopt a theoretical framework in our uh, theory for analysis, particularly in our literature review, we need to be consistent. Okay, we need to be consistent. Now, there are several notes that I also want you to um, care about, apart from the four principles that we have just uh, discussed. We need to be aware of the zero-centric views in analysis. Now, a little track. What is Eurocentric views in Vietnamese. Okay, what do you call this in Vietnamese? Okay, great. So Thảo is very quick. Yeah, dĩ Âu vi chung mean okay, taking the European grammar and linguistic system as okay, the center of our analysis. We should also be okay, um, aware that a theory framework can work well for one language but not for okay, the other languages. Okay, a particular tool or framework can work well for English, French, for European languages, but may not work well um, for um, isolating languages like Vietnamese, for example. For example, the subject-verb models of describing sentences works very well with European languages because you can always find noun in a subject and verb, okay, in a predicate. But for okay, Vietnamese, you see, in a lot of sentences we cannot identify noun in a subject or we cannot identify verb in a predicate. Also, okay, as people pay more and more attention to meaning and to okay, language functions in recent decades, um, functional grammar has become more and more okay, popular in contrasting language forms. So you know if you want to do your essays on contrasting um, grammar structures, then functional grammar okay maybe framework that um, you should look at. Now, the next principle is about families and typology relationships that we need to okay, take into account. So when you write your essays comparing, let's say, English and Vietnamese, it is always a good idea to actually it depends on the nature of the essay too, but it's a good idea to discuss the differences in typology between the two languages. Um, so can you translate typological relationship for me into Vietnamese? What do you call it in Vietnamese? Please type into the chat window. Hello everybody. Can you still hear me? Okay. But what do you call it in Vietnamese? Typological relationship. Okay, loại hình học. Yeah, quan hệ loại hình. Good. Quan hệ loại hình. Right. So knowing about the okay, typology and family relationship okay, is okay, a very useful start point for analyzing languages. All right. Now before we do a hands-on activities, I would now turn our meeting into okay. Now, do you have any questions on okay comments about the 5 principles that I have just discussed? If you want to speak, please just unmute yourself Okay, so click on your own microphone and you can talk to the whole class. Now, everybody. Okay, let me say this again. If you have any questions or comments that you want to share with the whole group, please unmute your own microphone in the attendees panel. So simply click on your microphone. Now, okay, Cẩm Phát, can you unmute yourself and okay talk to the whole group? Okay, thank you for the questions. Okay, I can hear you quite well. Um, yes, okay. I'm recording the meeting, and it will be put back into our online system like the previous meeting. Okay, Thanh Thảo, I see your question. Why don't you unmute yourself and okay, you know it's boring to hear my voice only. Okay, so can you unmute yourself and okay say aloud your question? Oh, you don't have a microphone. All right. So Thảo want to know more about okay typological relationship. What I mean is that when you describe languages, especially when you describe languages in okay terms of sounds or in terms of structures, it is useful to start from the typologies. Okay. For example, um, um, in terms of typology, Vietnamese belong to isolating typology. Okay, and English okay belong to the synthetic okay typology group. Now, each typology has okay very distinct characteristics about um, semantics and syntax. So in the isolating okay, typology, um, morphemes are isolated from each other. So each morpheme is okay a word, and each morpheme is also okay one syllable. Why English okay because it belongs to the synthetic typologies. Okay, words in English are formed by synthesizing, by combining different morphemes together. Uh, Now, when you point to okay that key difference in the lexis, I mean in the vocabulary or in the word structures, you are in a better position to describe okay the differences in grammar, okay, in structures between the two languages. All right, and okay, deciding about okay which topics that okay you're gonna work with okay is a necessary step okay to um, um, decide whether you want to analyze the typology relationship or not. But as a rule of thumb, if you want to compare vocabularies and grammar between language pairs, then the family relationship and the typological relationship of the two languages um, is a very good place to start. Now, are there any other questions or comments before I move on to our next activity? Good. Okay, look like we do not have any other questions or comments. Now, let's do a little hands-on. Okay, I stop lecturing here and give you a chance. I want you to go back to our learning system and look at the contrastive analysis essays by a student. This essay was six years ago. Um, I want you to look through the essays and tell me, okay, the principles of analysis that you can identify in her essay. Okay, this is not the best essay, but I just want you to have a look at it to have a sense of what you are supposed to write. Now, so I want you now to go into our learning system, scroll down to topic 5, and click on the PDF link word formation in English and Vietnamese. Can you find the link, everybody? Please type yes into the chat window to confirm. Okay, great. Good. So now I give you 5 minutes to look at the essay, and then we're gonna come back and discuss the principles that you can identify in this contrastive analysis. Okay, everybody, let's come back. Now, a little track before we move on. Can you all hear me clearly at the moment? Please type yes into the chat window. Good. Okay, so look like we have better sound quality this time. I think that's it because I try to turn off the webcam. Good. Thank you. Now, so let's come back to the task that we are working on. What principles of analysis can you identify? Now, so let's go back to the principle that we have discussed, the 5 principles. Did the student discuss the family and typological relationship between the 2 languages? Now, any ideas? Did she discuss that? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. So which part of her essay do you find discussion about family and typological relationship? Now, which part of the essay? Is it in the literature review, in the abstract, or in the work formations, in the compounding? We actually see her. Yeah. Okay. Now, any more responses in the common areas in page 4 and 5? Now, actually, she refers to the typological differences between English and Vietnamese in a variety of parts, but it's most notable in the discussions of literature review, yes, and then in page 4 and 5 when she discussed about word formations. Okay. So you see, because he's working on vocabulary structure and phrase structures, typological relationship is useful. Now, okay, this she used two different, conflicting theory frameworks in her analysis. Now, if you look at the literature review part, you can see that okay, the student trying to describe okay her viewpoint about okay the structures of Vietnamese and English words by discussing okay, the nature of morpheme, bound morpheme, and free morphemes. Okay, and she argues okay, that okay, in both English and in Vietnamese there are free morpheme and bound morphemes. And in her discussions, she sticks to only one theories about morphemes. So she say that, for example, uh, let's say now if we go back to um, page 3, okay, she say that words in Vietnamese can be single morpheme, can be two free morpheme like nhà máy. Okay, because nhà is meaningful and máy is meaningful, and it can be also um one vowel morpheme and one free morpheme. For example, đỏ lòm, xanh lè. So đỏ is okay a free morpheme and lòm is a vowel morpheme, right? Because we cannot use lòm with the other color. Now, so you see, she stick to only one framework. If you read other grammar books about Vietnamese, you can see that some researchers of Vietnamese studies claim that okay, in Vietnamese, um, okay, one morpheme is one word. Okay, like Professor Cao Xuân Hao, okay, he claims that okay, okay, one morpheme is one word, and so okay, đỏ lòm okay, should be considered as two different words, right? So you need to be consistent with the okay, framework, with the theory that you used. Now, for principle 3, language aspect examined within the language system, okay, also within the communication context. Do we see communication context analyzed in this essay? Do we? Do we? I would say not much because of the nature of this analysis. It is on yeah okay no or not much okay. Actually, we may argue that there is a little bit discussion, but because this is okay, an analysis on okay, vocabulary structure, so okay, it is not about cultural analysis, okay, meaning focused, and that's why we do not see much of principle 3. It is same for principle 2 because now do you see her analyze okay, the essay by describing languages meticulously and accurately? I mean, okay, did the student try to describe the two languages, okay, in details before, okay, making comparisons and contrasts? Yeah, thank you for sharing, Hoa. She described many aspects of word formations between two languages. Now, okay, so let me come back. Um, we see actually a lot of meticulous comparison and description of two language. Actually, okay, we can, we can expect more, but within the scope of a student essay, um, this is, quite an amount of descriptions, okay, before, okay, because he before she started to analyze. All right, so by looking at that essay, I hope you have some sense of the kinds of principles that we need to keep in mind. Now, so we move on to the steps and, okay, the methodologies. Now, the first thing, okay, that we need to do in order to describe language pair and contrast is to, um, yeah, describe in as, you know um, in as much detail um, as we can. You can learn it from the essay that we have just um, discussed. And when describing language pairs, it is better for us to refer to framework that are useful for, okay, language universals rather than framework for specific languages. Um, when you have already finished describing the language pair, okay, language A is like this, language B is like this, you can start, okay, putting them, okay, against each other, and then ask yourself these questions: which aspect of language A can be compared with which aspect in language B? Now this step we call just the positions. Okay. Just the position is to, position, to put two things, okay, next to each other, and try to, okay, see the connections between the two. Um, and, okay, it is this step that, okay, that require you to mobilize all of your understanding about linguistics. It depends on your experience, okay, and you need to go with your hunch. You need to see whether, okay, this aspect is comparable with this aspect or not. Okay, and okay, of course, there need to be verification later, okay, to check, okay, your hypothesis. And usually at this step, okay, we guess that, well, this aspect is comparable with this aspect, and we will, okay, look at some more simple analysis to help you um, understand this. Now, the next steps is called comparison proper. Okay, that means we start, okay, making comparisons by pointing out similarities and differences. According to Krasnodowski, in the key readings that, okay, I gave to you, there are three possibilities that we can come up with in this step. Um, the first case is that, okay, an aspect in, okay, language one can be identical in some aspects with an equivalent in language two. This is, although this is rare, okay, for Vietnamese and English, it can be um, the case with English and French, with Vietnamese and Chinese, for example. Now, the next possibility is that, okay, an aspect, let's call it X in, okay, L1 in language one, is different in some aspects with, okay, its equivalent in the second language. And, okay, the last possibility is that, okay, we find an aspect in L1, but we do not see any equivalent in L2, and this is called gaps, okay, lexical gap or structural gaps. Now, examples of the first case of aspect in L1 and equivalence in L2 can be gender case in French and Russians, like what we discussed last time in our class. In French, noun, adjectives, have and can be classified into genders of male and female. In Russians, we also have gender, but of course, Russians have three genders rather than two. In both English and French, we have tenses. So if we look at tense in English, we see that in French there are also tenses. Now, case 3 can also occur quite frequently when we look at English and Vietnamese. As for example, tenses in English, and in Vietnamese we do not have tenses, as we discussed in our face-to-face meeting last time, because Vietnamese verbs do not inflect. There can be some sounds, some consonant cluster that exist in English but do not exist in Vietnamese. Alright, now let's finish this by looking at the two different basic approaches to contrastive analysis. The first approach is called bilateral approach or multilateral approach. The bilateral approach means that we first identify the TC and then examine the equivalent language aspect in the language pairs that we compare. Now, a common title for this kind of approach is domain X in language A and language B. Yeah, we have already looked at some of these titles in our last meeting. For example, future time in English and in Serbian. And by this, we imply that there is future time in English and there is future time in Serbian too. Causal result meaning in English and Poland. A body part idiom in English and in Vietnamese. Okay. Now, with the bilateral approach, the start point can be from either language. Okay, it doesn't matter. For example, if you work with a topic on body part idioms in English and Vietnamese, then you can start by describing idioms in Vietnamese, or you can start by describing idioms in English. This kind of bilateral approach is popular in typological studies. Okay, and in language teaching, applied linguistics. I mean, this bilateral approach is useful for compiling theme-based bilingual dictionaries. For example, when we want to prepare dictionaries on on different domains, different topics, like in terms of sports, in terms of family relationship, in terms of food, for example, we can see the same domain in two languages. And usually, this kind of approach is easy, okay, um, yeah, for you to analyze, because you can always point to similarities and differences. Um, the next approach is called a unilateral approach. Okay, by unilateral approach, I mean that we study a language aspect in one language, but okay, it does not exist, okay, in the other language. So okay, whether we start with the start or the target language, I mean whether we start with the mother tongue or the target language, very much depends on the purpose and the task of comparing. It does not depend on, okay, the language structure. For example, when we compare tenses in English and Vietnamese, then okay, whether you want to start from Vietnamese or start from English, very much depending on, okay, your command of the language, your purpose of analysis. Okay, some people would only want to focus on, okay, tenses in English, and then okay have, okay, a little discussions about, okay, how people talk about or refer to, okay, the same concepts in Vietnamese. Uh, but okay, some other people may, okay, because of the nature of their research, okay, is more, tied to Vietnamese linguistics. They may want to, okay, analyze, okay, time reference in Vietnamese, and then talk a little bit about, okay, uh, uh, okay, the same issues in English. Now, so the common title for this kind of approach is domain X in language A and its corresponding means in language B. Now, these are some simple titles for those kinds of analysis, like pragmatic use of where in English and the corresponding means in Poland. And by this, we understand that in Poland, people do not have, okay, the same concept well, tag questions in English and equivalents in Vietnamese. Passive voice in English and equivalents in Vietnamese. Um, Now let's do, okay, the last hands-on activity. I want you to go back to our learning system, and this time, okay, open, okay, the PDF file with the title "A Contrastive Analysis of the Use of Determiners Between the Malay Language and English." Okay, okay, it is just about the word formation file that you opened earlier. So click on the file, and then, okay, try to answer this question for me. Which approach the these articles, okay, adopt in analysis? Is it bilateral approach, or is it unilateral approach? Okay, so please look through it very quickly for 3 minutes. Okay, everybody, are you ready? Let's come back. Um, so weak approach of analysis. Can you identify? Come on, only say multilateral or unilateral. Okay, from what you have learned. Yes, you are right. Okay, this is the bilateral approach of analysis. Okay, we can tell that first by looking at the title. Okay, contrast the analysis of the use of determiners between the Malay language and English. So, okay, determiners in Malayan and determiners in English. And then if you go down to the analysis after the literature review, you see, for example, in okay, different aspects like in talking about places or locations, then the researcher discuss Malay, English, and then in instruments, Malay, English, and then in names and subject of subject, okay, Malay, English, and then agreement to now, Malay, English, in forms of possessive determiner, Malay, English, cardinal numbers, Malay, English. Yeah, this is bilateral approach of analysis, um and the start language in Malay, okay, and we see a balance of writing about both Malay determiner and English determiner. Okay, so everybody, um, in our online lecture today, we have already discussed the 5 principles of analysis. And hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me clearly, everybody? Please say yes into the chat window if you can still hear me. Okay, great. Thank you. Fine. Now, so in our online lecture today, we have already discussed 5 key principles of contrastive linguistics and the two approaches. We also have the chance to look at some of the sample analysis. Okay, hopefully this gives you some more ideas about how you might form okay, your essays later. Before I stop the meeting here, do you have any questions or comments? We are now in the question and answer mode. So if you have questions, simply unmute your microphone and okay, speak to the whole group. I will take this chance to okay, show my face again. Okay, this is me again on the webcam. Alright. Any questions or comments, everybody? Now, while waiting for your for the questions, just a little reminder. I only see about 3 new posts in your video presentation about your favorite linguist. So please do it. I see one videos uploaded to YouTube. Okay. Obviously, okay, it will record it from a smartphone, and okay, it's a good use of your phone. Okay, I like it a lot too. So if you do not have a laptop, you can use your phone to record yourself, upload it to YouTube, and put the link back into our forum. Um, well, next week, as I have already said, we do not meet face to face in our class because um, well, I have teacher training sessions that I have to do in Da Nang, but at the same time, we have another very important meeting in the university. Anyway, we cannot meet face to face next time. So next week, I will open the phonology contrastive analysis for you to work, okay, asynchronously. It's not like synchronous, okay, meeting that we do today. So, okay, you have time to read through the materials to do the activity created, okay, in a new format. Right. So before I wrap up for the day, any questions or comments? Quiet as usual. All right. So I would like to say a big thank you to everybody for your active participation in this online meeting. Um, I hope that the link to the meeting will be available in our system soon. For now, let's say goodbye and have a great weekend. Bye bye.